and answer session. I like to teach people, not subjects. So I like to know who I'm talking to before I talk. Then somehow or other we can make communication. So if you can just tell me what the most important thing to you in life is. And that'll give me some idea of who I'm talking to, and then I can adjust accordingly. You understand? Come on. Got the whole life ahead of you. What are you going to do with it?
I'm Sofia from Mexico. The most important thing for me is being with people that I feel connected to and be inspired by them and the environment that I'm in.
Great. Okay.
I'm Sadie. I'm from the U.S. and I would say the most.
It's Mike, so just hold on.
I would say the most important thing in my life is in a very broad sense, love, and the love I give and the love I receive. And I think for me that means being a part of a mutually supportive and uplifting community, and also having both the internal emotional toolkit to navigate rocky terrain and the external support system.
Great.
Hello, I'm from Spain, and I'm not sure what the most important thing in life is for me, but like one thing that I value a lot is people. In general, like their interactions between each other, their reactions, the interactions with the environment. It is something that I really like value in general, and I think it's the thing that I value most.
Hello, I'm Luisa from Mexico. And the most important thing, other than like the human interactions, I guess, for me personally is like reaching. We don't have. There's not a word in English for it, but like plenitud, fullness, plenitud in Spanish, or like peace of mind, I guess. So.
My name is Pato from Mexico as well, and I think what's most important for me is to get myself to know myself as much as possible.
Good audience. Okay, now we hear from your side. What are your questions?
I would love to know your story. How did you got here?
In Vrindavan?
Yeah, how did you go to Vrindavan? What brought you here? Why did you decide to stay?
Okay. Before Vrindavan, I've been here for 22 years. Before that, I was in Mayapur. Mayapur is in a very holy dham in the land of Bengal. It's recognized as being part of Bengal. I was there for 18 years. And in that time, I was doing a lot of village work. Like you, I had a very strong interest in the people, the culture, and what I missed out on as a kid. It was a very, very uplifting environment and experience, and my intention was to stay there throughout this life. But I was really pushing myself. Village life is not easy, especially when you're doing it 24/7. So I had very serious health difficulties. I actually had 2 strokes. And I was advised by both my spiritual mentors and the doctors to move to Vrindavan because it's a lot more centralized, smaller sort of environment. Mine was a huge project. So, so I came here. And I realized that although I was told to come for those reasons, the real reasons were very much in tune with what you had to say. That it gave me an opportunity to not be so much externally going out and being preoccupied so much with helping others. That's important, but it's not enough. If we're not feeding ourselves, if we're not nourished ourselves, we can't give to others. So it gave me a very good opportunity here to really go very, very deep. It's a very special land. It's the land of Srimati Radharani. And it's been very growthful for me. I've learned a lot by being here. People are very special. The energy is very special. Superficially, you don't see that. You see the rubbish on the streets. You see the monkeys that steal your glasses, all those kind of things. But when you live here and you live here through all the seasons, you get a very holistic understanding of how special this place is.
You are originally from Australia?
Yeah, I came from Australia in '84. That's when I moved to Mayapur. I was running a school there for some time. And then I was actually more attracted to work in the field, to go into the villages. So then I did that.
And why here?
Why Vrindavan?
Yeah, no, why like India?
India.
Like, why did you come?
Why India? I think my strong feeling is that I've lived here before. Because so many things I felt so much in tune with from the day I arrived. And actually, when I first went to Calcutta, I thought I knew the place. And even many of the habits that my mum and dad had, they were not Australian habits. Australians don't wash their feet and hands and mouth before they take a meal. My parents never had any external contact with India, but they did this kind of things. Prayers before meals, silence during meals to honor the meal, all those kind of things. No TV. I was raised without a TV. These are not Australian things. They're from somewhere else. So when I got here, I very much liked the people. I like the open-heartedness. And I like the honesty, the simplicity. All of these qualities very much attracted me. So I actually decided to make it home. And I took citizenship. I'm an Indian citizen despite my white skin, etc. So I took citizenship in 2009 while I was in Mayapur. There was a communist government at that time and it was very, very difficult. The last person who tried from ISKCON to get citizenship was blacklisted. And I thought, well, I really want to know where God wants me. Does he want me in India? Does he want me in the West? Where does he want me to spend my life serving him? So I'll take the risk. So I took the risk, and the people that I was working with in the villages, they actually went to court for me to support my citizenship. And it was interesting because they were Panchayat members or local council members. And they were in the same Communist Party as the leaders who were trying to stop me get citizenship. But these people were supporting me, so they had no way but to accept me. We made them a huge Mahaprasad Indian flag cake to celebrate. They were very happy.
Do you practice any religion?
I was actually not so interested in religion as a kid. I was more adventurous. But as I matured into teenage years, I was very attracted to yoga, vegetarianism, things like that. I was actually, eating cows and all sorts of things when I was a young kid. But at the age of 14, they took us, the school principal took us on an excursion to a slaughterhouse. And that was the end of meat for me. I never ate meat again after that. It's amazing how things influence you.
What would you say is the difference of what
philosophy of Wishka
Philosophy of Bhakti. Bhakti Yoga.
and a religion. What's the difference?
Religion can change. Sometimes a person who's a Hindu can be influenced by someone they meet who really impresses them and they become a Christian. Or a Christian may become a Muslim. So these designations, these religions, they have their place. They help people be people rather than animals, so they have their place. But the thing is that when we're talking bhakti, we're talking the natural inclination of the soul, of us, real us. So for us, we're not so much caught up in the external reality. This life, this body, everything that's associated with this body is temporary. It's not going to last forever. So you have a few wrinkles. It's not going to last forever. So because we can understand, even with the brain can understand, okay, then I don't want to identify with something that's temporary. I want to line up with something that's eternal. I don't like dead ends. I've never liked dead ends. So bhakti is not a dead end. Basically, it's a practice that helps you, bring you into line with who you are as souls, as a real eternal person with a loving relationship with Krishna. So then, and that doesn't change. Our dharma, or our natural inclination, is to serve. We're always serving somebody. We're either serving this body, it's got to be washed, it's got to be fed, it's got to clean the clothes. Service. You've got friends, you do service to your friends. You've got parents, you do service to your parents, they do service to you. So this is the essence, is the service. But that service is actually meant for God, it's meant for Krishna.
Have you heard about this philosophy before coming to India?
I was actually in India before I knew anything about this philosophy. I was practicing Patanjali yoga. It's a very amazing yoga. I still practice a lot of that. And I was here training for a charyaship to actually be a teacher in Patanjali. But then there was the death, I think it was of one of the Gandhis was assassinated. And they changed the regulations about Commonwealth citizenship entry into India. So I had to go back to Australia for visa purposes. I was only there, I took a vow that I wouldn't stay in the country more than 10 days. So, and I followed that vow. But in those 10 days, I saw a sign when I was walking down the street that said, come and hear a message that's from 5,000 years ago and has come all the way to meet you. So I thought, okay, I'll go and have a look at that. And I was very proud at that time because I knew a lot of things. I thought I knew a lot of things. And I went there to argue, actually. I was quite like that I would argue with them, show them that, yoga is higher than what they're talking about. I went there and I was very, very inspired by a number of things in the place. And I actually joined ISKCON at that time. I went to, that was in 1980, end of 1980. And then I was sent for training in Melbourne, then Sydney, then Brisbane. But I like my freedom. I'm not an institution type person. It just doesn't suit me. It has its advantages. Institutions have its advantages, but for me personally, it doesn't work so well. So I wanted my freedom to do more what I wanted to do. So I got permission to take responsibility for the book distribution up the whole coast, east coast of Australia, which meant that I was traveling alone all the time, meeting a lot of people, talking to a lot of people, and having time also to interact with myself. I lived in a van. When it ran out of books, we'd get them sent to the next railway station, fill it up again, and just go up and down the coast. It was good fun. So like that. So yeah, but all of that, I had a very strong desire to live in India, but it seemed like I was being taken away from that desire. I was asked, they found out about my educational qualifications, the management of ISKCON, so they asked me to go back to get off the streets and go back to university and do a PhD in Devi Varnashram. So I wasn't very happy about that because I liked the way I was living. But I thought, okay, let's give it a try. It was an interesting couple of years. We won the 2 scholarships that were going at the university, and one that was a government scholarship. And but at heart I wasn't really so into it. I was doing it as a duty, but I wasn't really into it. So, you know, there's a secret weapon that we have when we get ourselves into circumstances that we're not really happy with. It's called prayer. So I had the little deities that I was serving, Gonitai deities. I don't know if you're about Gonitai. They're very merciful. So I was serving them when I was back in town. And I went to them and I just explained very openly, I don't like this idea. I'm doing it, but I don't like it. I want to go to India. So what they did, I got these scholarships and everything, but then how they maneuvered things was very interesting. They wanted to open a school in Mayapur, but they wanted somebody qualified to run it. So then they heard about my qualifications and my success with my studies, and since I'd started again, decided I was the person to do it. So that brought me to India. Kind of like this. Krishna's way of organizing things.
The first is, I'm wondering, well, you asked all of us what the most important thing to our life was. I'd love to know what the most important thing in your life is. And my second question is, we've been learning a lot about spiritual growth and how it's sort of just this perpetual journey. You're never really finished. I'm wondering what's something you've recently learned about your spirituality or yourself.
Okay, very interesting questions. A major insight that came to me a couple of months ago, it was quite transformational, is that we tend to think that the present shapes my future. What I do now, that will shape what happens later. But then I met a very great saint. He's one of our ISKCON gurus. And he broadened my vision. He said, okay, that's okay if you want to do it the normal way, but if you want to make a lot of progress spiritually, you've got to see things a bit differently. You've got to see, okay, realize your future. What is your dream? What is your dream? And then backtrack it and mold your present so it meets that dream. So that's a pretty amazing way of doing things, and it has actually changed my life in a lot of ways because my aspirations are very, very high. They're very much higher than my level of competence or, qualification. But my real secret aspiration is to become a simple cowherd girl in service of Srimati Radharani. Under the shelter are some pretty amazing people that have captured my heart. Those people are Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, very powerful preacher. In the spiritual sky, he is Naina Mani Manjari. He's a servant of Radhika. His father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in the spiritual sky, he's also a servant of Radhika. His name is Kamala Manjari. of Rupa Goswami, who is also a servant of Radhika, who is Rupa Manjari. And of course, everybody has a boss. So they're all under basically one boss, who's then, the next step up is Radhika, but their boss is Shrup Damodar in Gaulila. He, Hare Krishna, he is Lalita Devi. She's actually seen as the guru of Radha and Krishna. She's very fiery. She's very powerful. She not only looks after all the gopis, and that's like millions of people that she takes care of, not only the gopis of Radha and Krishna, but also of Balaram. Powerful, powerful lady. So, you know, my desire is just to be a little speck of dust at their feet and move on in life.
That's beautiful. I think it's so admirable, your devotion to these other people, and you're sharing so many kind things about these people around you and these people who have influenced you. What are you most proud of about yourself?
I don't have anything to be proud of, actually. I had the great good fortune to meet a very empowered saint. If I'm proud of anything, it's that somehow or other, despite my ignorance, my pride, so many bad qualities, I took him as my life and soul. And that's been my protection, that's been my nourishment, that's been my moving forward. We tend to think that we can do things on our own, but we can't even see our eyelashes. We can't see around corners. We don't know past or future. So how can we make a decent decision? We make them all the time. We get ourselves into a lot of trouble with some of the decisions we make. But if you have the good fortune to be under the guidance, not of some rascal, some cheater, but under the shelter and guidance of an actual saint, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And it's such a big relief. You don't have to be so, you know, like in much an anxiety or so protective or so closed about things anymore. You can freely run like a kid. You see, with a kid, they don't have any idea of preparing for tomorrow or how to protect themselves. Everything does spontaneously by the parents. So the role of a saint in your life is like that. They're like a very loving, guiding parent that's not going to make a mess of your life.
What about those two things for you? And then I feel like you should realize this is sensations. I can.
Continue. Just finish it.
This one.
Okay. One, do you feel that you are free? And two, I think that parental relationship that one can have with another is so beautiful and so valuable, and very formative for both sides, I think. How do you feel like you occupy that role for others? Or if not, what do you feel like you are to others?
It's a lot of questions.
Take your time.
What was the first one?
Do you feel that you are free?
Yeah, okay. You know, the problem is that we've got ourselves into a circumstance that we are many-tiered. Our present existence is quite complicated. As a simple cowherd girl living in the spiritual sky, we have a body that is not bound by birth, death, disease, and old age. I can't say that about this body. I have a mind, intelligence, and ego that is separate from the real me at the moment. That's also uncomfortable. So you're not really free in the sense that you have to deal with all this baggage. You're not just spirit at the moment. You have a subtle body, you have a gross body. Somehow or other you have to balance the whole act. But if you do it responsibly, responsibly means in line with the saints, in line with the scriptures, you can get enough freedom to rediscover the real you, who is free, and to make that link. Yeah. In terms of how I see myself, in terms of those who take, guidance from me like that, one of the biggest stumbling blocks for any spiritualist is getting caught up in designations. Every designation is like a layer over the real you. I'm an old lady. I'm a renunciate. I'm Australian. All these are like coverings and coverings. It gets to the point where most people can't breathe. They're suffocated by these coverings. So I have a series of very strong meditations to keep me, and they're from one of my eternal teachers. He wrote some very beautiful bhajans. I have these meditations that I can constantly remind myself of who I am and what my journey is and what my destination is. So that's one package. On the other side, there are other people who are inspired, who want guidance, and I see it as my responsibility to the saint who's helping me to, in some way, small way, repay him for what he's given me. So I take on that role, but I don't take on the designation. I take on the role, but not the designation. It's a lot safer way to go. That way you're free to, move around a bit.
So, in terms of your personal spiritual growth, but also your understanding of yourself along in your life, what would you say to your younger self, or what would you advise to your childhood self?
I don't actually have any advice for myself. I am very much fond of hearing the heartbeat of saints far more elevated than I am. You see, I have my limitations. People see me as very elevated, but I can see my limitations. But I can also see people a lot way ahead of me. So I don't get too caught up in myself. I get caught up in those who are already there and what I can learn from them. Now, amazing thing is, and this is a very important point if you want to develop your spiritual personality, a lot of people get caught up just in philosophy. That's important. Knowing the philosophy has its role. You don't get cheated if you know the philosophy properly. But more important is bhajans. When the heart of a saint sings, it is called a bhajan. So those bhajans carry their heart. And by learning those bhajans, absorbing yourself in those bhajans, you develop an affinity for them, an affinity for their heart. You want to be like them. And that is a very quick way to grow. I'll give you a little example. This is a very, very powerful bhajan by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It's very, very high, but I use it every day as a check, as a reality check. When will I be able to leave this gross bodily identity far behind? Then, in a split second, I will forget all these external, temporary affairs. And I will see Vrindavan for the transcendental land of bliss, knowledge, and eternity that is. Then I will be born in the town of Vrishabhanu Maharaj. That's Radharani's town. I will be married nearby in Yavat, all for the purpose of serving my Radha. I will have the disposition of a simple cowherd girl. I will have no other identity, no other mood. And so it goes on. It goes into quite some depth of what I look like, how I, everything. But these, this is what I want to absorb myself in. I don't want to read the news or go on the internet. I mean, who do I care? What really matters to me about what's happening in this world? It's all the same story, over and over again. Different people playing the same roles, but it's the same story.
Do you have a desire to make a change are you content with our society?
For a long time, actually that was my first step into social life. But at the age of 18, I was the secretary of the Communist Party in South Australia. My whole life was dedicated to helping people that didn't have what I had. I had what I needed. I had more than I needed. But I saw a lot of people around me who didn't have it. So my first step was into that kind of environment. But then I saw the corruption within the so-called, party that was for equality of all. I saw the corruption. I saw so many things. I thought, this is not the answer. It's got to go beyond this. And that's when I started to look further. I did a lot of things. I flew planes. I did scuba diving. I explored all elements of the material energy. But then nothing. It was actually when I was in the plane. It was a little Cessna. It was a 6-seater, and I was flying over the coast where the beach, the water, and the land meet, and there's a lot of turbulence. And just a couple of minutes before that, I was really quite a meditative mood. I was looking down and seeing all these little tiny boxes that were people's houses, and from where they were, it looked like a big place, but from where I was, it looked like a matchbox. And I was thinking about that, and I thought, wow, that's an interesting perspective. But then we went into a turbulence, an air turbulence, and the plane went into a nosedive. And I thought, so this was very interesting. But then I physically felt like 2 huge hands brought the plane up again and set it on course and took me out of the turbulence. So that gave me a lot to think about. There's somebody beyond what I can see that's helping me. I want to know that person. So that became my next challenge. And then I got interested in yoga. I came to India, traveled around, did a lot of things, and eventually ended up practicing bhakti.
What makes India so special?
India, at the moment, is not so special. It's becoming very, very degraded. But I'm not really interested in India. I'm interested in the dhams, the holy dhams, that happen to be in India. Because it's in the dhams, if you stay away from the crowds, it's in the dhams that you can meet amazing saints. It's in the dhams that you can have amazing experiences, life transformational experiences.
You mentioned that you feel like India is becoming very degraded.
Yeah.
Do you feel some sort of responsibility to do something about it?
We have to run on 2 tracks to stay sane and keep progressing, we have to run on 2 tracks. One track is our personal progress track. No compromise on that. That's primary. The other is you see what responsibilities you have, how you can help. One amazing saint gave me a very strong clue, which is a major key for me, about how to deal with this question of responsibility and being a useful part of your society. He told me, really amazing. I asked him once, because I saw him do some amazing things. I asked him, okay, how do you do what you do? How do you maintain your spiritual growth and also deal with all this other madness and stay sane? How do you do that? He said, I have 3 circles of vision. First circle of vision, I have responsibility. I have influence. I follow it, I do it. I will take that responsibility. Second circle, I have no responsibility, but I have some influence. To the extent that I have influence, to that extent, I'll get involved and try and help make change. If I have no responsibility and no influence, I don't see it. Now this is quite an amazing thing, because you just take a look at the world scenario. What value is there going to be in you being caught up in following the Ukraine war? Can you do anything about it? You don't have any influence. You don't have any power to do anything about it. So better you channel your energy to somewhere you can do something about it. Make sense? We waste a lot of time worrying about things that have got nothing to do with us and our progress in this life. You know, we have one thing that we're not aware of is how rare this human life is. We take it for granted. We take it for granted, but it's a very precious gift. A dog can't make spiritual advancements. You can. Difference between a dog and a human. So if we get caught up too much in everyday affairs like the animals also eat and sleep. We've got to have something beyond that. And it's going to move us forward.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is there anything you regret, like from your life or from your past?
There's a lot of things that I would have done better if I had the insights I have now. I don't regret them because my understanding and my experience is that life is a journey, and at different times we know this amount, we work within that limit. But if we just close down and think, I don't want to have any regrets, so I'm not going to do anything, where am I going to go with that? So, you know, I don't have regrets, although I feel that I could have done a lot of things a lot better. But that's helping shape me now. So no loss. And I'm sure if I'm still around in this body in 10 years' time, I'll be thinking the same about now. Life's a journey.
You mentioned that we take it for granted. How would you say you can take advantage of the body that we have now?
Yeah. Basically, if I have a very exquisite, rare bird, and I'm very proud of that bird, and I had an especially made cage for him. But I spend all my time polishing the cage and I don't feed the bird. What's going to happen?
Bird is gonna die.
The bird's going to die. So us, we're living inside here. We've got to feed ourselves. At the moment, we feed the body. We take care of the body. But we're more than the body. If we're not more than the body, why when somebody drops dead in front of me do I say he's gone? Who's gone? So there's somebody else that's making this body work, keeping it functional. So that person you have to feed. That means that you follow your career, you have your family, but you have a spiritual life that is nourishing and shaping all that.
What would be the best? How do you feed the bird? Like,
Yeah. Feed the bird. One of the simplest ways to feed the bird, we all love food, right? But there are different kinds of food. So one of the best ways, and maybe you guys can teach them, best ways is to learn how to offer what you cook to Krishna. Because it looks the same after you've offered it, but it's different. It has a different effect. If you offer what you cook, that means it has to be offerable things. You offer what you cook to Krishna, then you take that. It's called prasadam, mercy. So that feeds your body and you. It feeds the bird and the cage. It keeps you both healthy. So that's a really good way to start. It's just to learn how to offer whatever you make to Krishna. Like that. And that's, even in terms of gratitude, this is very important. If you have a think about it, who provides what you eat? Is it made in factories? Can you produce vegetables in factories? Nothing that we eat is, you can't make it in a factory. You can process it into something else in a factory. But you can't grow even a simple potato in a factory. So Krishna is providing everything we eat. Why not offer it to him first? In gratitude, just a matter of gratitude. It makes a whole new experience of eating.
You mentioned this importance of concentrating on what you can do something about. But what is the line between awareness of your surroundings and general consciousness, but especially also in other people, just knowing?
Yeah, this is a very good question. Very good question. You see, if you're practicing a dynamic spiritual process, then you as a person become refined and more in tune, not only with what's around you, and not only gross but also subtle, but you become in tune with God's expectations of you. Now when you make that link and you become an instrument of God's mercy, that's a whole different dimension. To go out and try and do good to people, it'll have its ups and downs. There'll be a lot of limitations. How much can you do? You feed a man tomorrow, he's going to be hungry tomorrow. You feed him today, he's going to be hungry tomorrow. So, but if you're actually working in harmony with cosmic law, with the divine plan that's moving this place, you can do amazing things. What's that?
Like, how would you active that?
More practical, maybe in your practical setting. Yeah.
How would you
Okay.
do that?
Yeah. You see, change works from the subtle to the gross. If you want real change. If you want Band-Aid change, put a Band-Aid on it, you'll just work on the externals. But any saint will tell you, if you want real change, you start internally. And you start by assessing who you are, what your connections are spiritually, how your daily life routine should be to attain what you want to attain. And when you're well centered as a person, you're properly balanced as a person, then you can think about expanding your field. You see? If I'm always irritable, I'm always angry, I've always believed that my opinion is the only one that really counts, how is that going to affect people? Are they going to be inspired to follow my lead? But if they see, even when she's in difficult circumstances, she doesn't get upset. Even when I make mistakes, she doesn't yell and scream at me. She just shows me how to do it better. So how do you do all those little tiny things that people notice and which changes their heart and mind about you? You do all that by developing yourself as a spiritual personality you want to be, and then radiating it. Does that make sense?
I have a question.
Sure. What's the time?
So 12 minutes to.
Okay, great. I've got a bunch of painters waiting to paint the walls.
What do you think is love? What do you
Love.
think is love?
The closest thing to love in this world is selflessness. Most people, they call love, what they call love is actually an arrangement for them to meet their self-needs. They're not really interested in the other person. They're interested in satisfying their needs, and they call it love. But actually, real love starts with selflessness. Yeah.
Do you think there's such thing as a selfless good deed?
Yes.
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 Could you give me an example of that?
My Gurudev, he was born in a very cultured family, had everything going for him. He met his Gurudev at the age of 22, and it really resonated with him, really changed his heart. It took him many, many years to be able to fulfill his Gurudev's order. But when he was in his late 70s, he went single-handedly to America to fulfill the desire of his Gurudev. The desire of his Gurudev is, okay, Bhakti's there for the West, is for India. Everybody in India knows about Bhakti. But there's a lot of people outside India who are suffering. They haven't got a clue of what spiritual life is about. He said to my Gurudev, you go and do that. At 77, he was in his late 70s. He left India with the equivalent, like 40 rupees, no contacts. All he had was faith in the holy name, which is a very powerful form of meditation, and faith in his Guru. There was only two assets. He went through hell, but he did it out of selfless love. You wouldn't be in India now without his mercy.
Was happy about what he made, the decision that he made about that journey? Like, did it not like fulfill him at the end of the day? I mean, yes, the help was towards others, but at the end of the day, was he fulfilled?
He was, part of selfless love is that the lover is more important than you. The desires of the lover are more important than your desires. He was fully satisfied because he had lived his life in the selfless service of his Gurudev.
What if, like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, the selflessness is not both-sided. What does it becoming?
It's usually not both-sided. Huh? It's usually one-sided. It's not a problem. You see, in spiritual life, in material life, we think in terms of a relationship, one-on-one relationship. Yeah? Two people having a relationship. But in spiritual life, it's a little bit different. It's like you've got the two people involved, but you've got the saint guiding you involved. So regardless of how the other person is treating you, that's not your preoccupation. Your preoccupation is, does the saint who is guiding my life, is he happy with how I'm handling this? So it's like the other person, they may be saying and doing all sorts of crazy things, but it's not going to blow your mind, it's not going to take you off track, because their response is not as important as the saint's response.
So then was the point? Like, what's the point of, I don't know how to explain it, but like, that type of love, like,
Yeah, the point of that kind of love is to help others find themselves, discover who they actually are, and they become fully fulfilled in that. It's one thing to talk. It's another thing to actually live it. When you find somebody who's living it, it'll impact your heart. You won't forget it. If someone's just talking it, it'll go in one ear and out the other. It won't stay. It won't stay. So we don't want to deal with the talkers. We want to deal with the walkers. Those who are walking what they're talking. We want to deal with those people. Never be so concerned with what people are saying. You watch their behavior, whether it matches.
Can you mention your opinion on society today?
We're living in Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is a very degraded age, and that's lamentable. But the good side of the coin is it's also the age of a very rare, amazing person who came for us, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he made this age very, very special. So although it's very, very degraded, people really haven't got a clue what they're doing. By the mercy of Mahaprabhu, they can still perfect their human form of life through very simple things. Singing, dancing, and eating. Nothing complicated about it. Very simple.
Is that the way you get through that kind of hopelessness that sometimes we can feel towards the future?
You see, the thing is that when you're under the guidance of a saint, they don't have the same perspective as we do. We see on our level, and we may get a little distracted or depressed about that. But with the saint, he's seeing it from a much higher level, and he's seeing the influences that are orchestrating things. So he's not going to get so much concerned or bogged down. You see, everything that's happening is under divine will. It's a big topic. We can't go into it now. But it's a very big topic because divine will, because divine is unlimited, he has unlimited wills. He has a different will for you than he has for me, and he has for the guy on the street. He has unlimited wills, but he can manage that. We can't. We have trouble dealing with one will, but he can deal with a whole bag full of them. So we don't want to get too caught up in what's happening in the world, because if we're living under the guidance of a saint, we realize that, okay, this world is temporary, a lot of influences here that don't really have anything to do with me. I'm not going to involve myself with them. I want to move on. I want to move on. Be there, don't be cold-hearted. Be there for when genuine seekers come to you and need help. But don't be there for everybody. They'll sap you dry.
Okay, last question. You have time for just one question.
Okay, what's the time?
It's 3 minutes to 2.
Oh,
Okay, and
okay.
we have a photograph also.
Just very quickly, what is this interlapse? Like, if you, how, to what extent do you trust, like, the process or have patience in what this plan
Yeah.
or this
Yeah, it's very interesting.
guidance, and take action upon?
Yeah, see, this is a very, you're raising a very important point here, and most people who are trying to walk the spiritual path, they don't realize this. But you see, our attachment shouldn't be for the process. You can't have a relationship with a process. You can't take advice from a process. We want to have a relationship with the giver of the process. With the giver of the process. Now, when there's a giver of the process, that changes things a lot. Because one, we're developing a relationship with this saintly person. And that's very protective and very, very growthful. You see, when you're attracted at heart level to somebody, what it does is it pulls your heart towards them. You want to be like them. You want to know how they think, how they do things. So that's one point. Another point is about trust. Now, this is a very interesting thing that's in relation to having a relationship with the giver of the process. You see, the word have trust in somebody, there has to be a feeling of shelter. If you don't feel sheltered by somebody, you don't feel somebody has genuine care for you, doesn't have your best interests at heart, knows more than you, can help you further along the path. If you don't feel that shelter, how can you trust? You can't trust. So the two things have to be there. For you to put your trust in somebody, you have to feel shelter from them. Genuine shelter from them.
Thank you so much. You have a question?
Can you give me for putting up the question at last? But I just have one question: that how do we make sure that we don't take for granted the association we get? Sometimes we get the association of the devotees, but we take it so much for granted that it doesn't just work well. And of course we commit offenses, so we just, rather than moving forward, we come backwards.
Yeah. Good final question. Very important to have time in your daily schedule for self-reflection. You need time in a day when you can go over what you did in a day and how you feel about that, how you can improve that, how you need to change your prayers. If we don't reflect on what we do each day, there's no growth in it. We're just doing. No value in that. But if we give ourselves time, early evening is good. I mean, just have a look at the day. How did I treat people today? How did people treat me, and how did I react to that today? A lot of stuff to think about, what we did today, what we experienced today. What can I learn from that? Is that okay?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.